Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to give another minute or so for folks to join. In the meantime, would love to know where everyone is dialing in from. So on the chat box, you can drop in where you're calling from. You actually, the chat might be disabled. You can drop it into Q&A. You want to tell me where you're calling in from? Yeah, chat is disabled. So we've got India, Orlando, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Korea, 1 a.m. Thank you so much for being here. St. Louis, Arlington, New York City, India, Chicago, Pakistan. Amazing. Naples, Florida. We've got a geographically diverse group. That's awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining. Regardless of where you're residing, it's a pleasure to have you here. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Ann Kilby. I'm Assistant Dean and Director of Operations for the MBA program at Georgetown McDonough. This is my 15th year in higher education. Of the last 5, I've been with Georgetown. I truly love it here. It's such a great fit for me personally and professionally, and it's an institution I'm just so proud to represent and be affiliated with. So I'm happy to take you through today what's called our application workshop. The purpose of this session is to help you to either prepare your application so that you know what the different components are and some best practices around gathering them, or if you've already submitted your application, getting a better understanding of how we define these components in terms of how are we assessing them, what are the considerations, so that you can see behind the curtain of what's contributing to your admissions decision. So regardless of what stage you are in the process, I hope this session is helpful for everyone. I am going to leave a good amount of time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box as we're moving along, and I'll get to them at the end if you don't want to forget them, or you can drop them all in once we have that space. Let's go ahead and get started. So there are many application components that go into making your admissions decision of admit, waitlist, or deny. We operate in what we call a holistic admissions review, and to define that, it means that it should be a combination of metrics, of indicators that are justifying your admissions decision. We want to ensure that you will be successful in the classroom. So from an academic performance perspective, we want to make sure you'll be successful for recruitment and getting the post-MBA or short-term goal, the job that you're hoping to seek. So from a recruitment standpoint, we also want to ensure that you will thrive in our community, which is extremely collaborative, service-minded, team-oriented. So that's why it must be holistic review, because we need to ensure we feel confidence in your success across those different verticals. Now, the only exception to holistic admissions review would be if there is an extreme outlier. that is affecting your entire application, such as you had a 1.5 GPA on a 4.0 scale. Like no matter what you do, it might be difficult to recover from that metric. It's very rare that we have such an extreme outlier, but just wanted to share that caveat. Otherwise, I would say 98% of applicants have a holistic approach to their admissions decision. So all that to say, what you see in front of you are different application components that we're going to dig into further. We can categorize these components into measures that are quantitative versus measures that are qualitative. So it'll just help us further break down these components. So we'll start on the quantitative side. So we'll start first with academic history. So what your academic history is, it is made up of your undergraduate transcript. So that would be your final cumulative GPA, as well as a transcript review, which we're looking for any patterns of performance. Are there types of courses where you did better or worse? How about for the MBA relevant or more quantitative courses? How did you do on those? What's really driving your GPA? Is there a pattern over time for performance? Is your GPA increasing over time? Is there an isolated period of lower performance? So we're taking a dive into your transcript. We also absolutely contextualize your transcript performance by considering your major as well as the rigor of your institution. In addition, we are reading your optional essay. Perhaps there's something that we can learn from what you've shared with us there about your academic performance. And this is a best practice I want to share with you. If there is something in your transcript where you, in putting yourself in the shoes of the admissions committee, feel like there might be hesitation or potential concern, or confusion, then I would encourage you to write an optional essay to help us better understand the situation and to prevent us from making assumptions. So for example, if your freshman year stands out as being the worst performing year, and it's because you had a lot of difficulty adjusting to a completely different location or environment, being away from your family, whatever it may be, but yet your performance got better from there because you sought academic counseling, or you've just felt more stable. Tell us. We would love to have that context. Or maybe it had to do with changing your major, or maybe you had some things personally going on during your academic history that were affecting your performance. Again, prevent us from making assumptions. Go ahead and share that. In terms of your final GPA, we've got the 80th% range for the full-time program and the Flex MBA program listed here. That's on a 4.0 scale. And so that is our class profile to give you a sense of what are we looking for, or what are we accustomed to seeing. Now, I know those of you who went to school internationally, or there are US institutions that operate on a non-4.0 scale, we will rely on your grade mark sheet. So every transcript has a way to interpret, a scale to interpret your grades. We will rely on that to tell us how did you perform. But if you want to do a gut check, a check based on intuition, this is a quantitative MBA assignment for you. You can do a direct proportion to say, or actually even simpler, you can do a percentile. So what is a 3.8 out of 4? You get that percentile. then you see, okay, I got a 7.3 out of 10 scale. What is that percentile as a point of comparison? So feel free to do that as an intuition check. Next, we'll talk about test scores. So we accept the GMAT, the GRE, the executive assessment, and we also have test waivers for both full-time Flex and the Flex Online program. The test waivers, we have the eligibility and the policy details on our website. So a simple Google search of full-time MBA, Georgetown test waiver, for example, will pull that up for you. The eligibility has to do, for both programs, has to do with your academic history. So check that. For the process side of the test waiver, for the Flex and Flex Online MBA applications, you apply for the test waiver within your MBA application. For the full-time MBA test waiver, you apply for it in advance. You've only started your MBA application, and we want to get you your test waiver decision before you move forward in the MBA application process. So again, read through the policy and eligibility online to make sure you know, are you eligible and competitive, and what are the next steps for those. If you do take a standardized test, or you have taken a standardized test, again, GMAT, GRE, or executive assessment are acceptable for us. We do not have a preference across those types of tests. So I would strongly encourage you to be strategic by taking a practice test, seeing which test you're naturally most inclined towards, and then take that test. Why set yourself up for more difficulty? And then these are 80% ranges to give you a sense of what to aim for. So we don't have minimums because of holistic review, but we do absolutely compare you to the application pool to see how competitive you are across various measures. And so you want to try to aim within this sweet spot. And since it is a holistic review, take into account, if you have a really strong undergrad performance, it takes a little pressure off of your standardized test. If your undergrad performance is not as strong, it puts a little more pressure on your standardized test. So think about it from a holistic review perspective that way too. The executive assessment, I know we don't have the scores listed here. We have only been taking the executive assessment for a short amount of time. It is getting more and more popular though. So we know we need we need to offer more guidance around it. We just don't have that big of a sample size yet. But from what we've seen, you want to aim for a section score of an 11 or a 12, and that's out of 20 per section. So an 11 or a 12. I would say too, I'm sure someone will ask me this, there's no advantage or disadvantage to getting a test waiver versus taking a test. We invented the test waiver policy, so we would never want to put someone at a disadvantage for following our own policy. So if you're eligible for it, please feel free to pursue it, especially on the full-time side. You find out your test waiver decision before you even submit the application. So you can just see if you're eligible, for example. But if we do have the test, it is another indicator. It's something else that we can use within our assessment of your candidacy. So it's another data point. All right, the last quantitative measure we'll go through is the years of work experience. So we define your years of work experience as post-undergrad full-time work that is paid. So it must check all of those boxes to be calculated. That's an industry definition. Certainly, if you have part-time work, volunteer work, internships, work throughout undergrad, for example, please list it on your resume for what you deem as relevant, because we will take it into account in your holistic review. It just doesn't feed into this automatic calculation. So what you'll notice is about 5 to 6 years of work experience is what we see on average. Our sweet spot is really 2 to 8 years of work experience, and that is directly informed by our recruiters. So we need to make sure that we're meeting a certain work profile of students so that we're aligned with our recruiting partners, because they also have in mind what is a typical post MBA profile look like, and so that's why we say a sweet spot here. Now, another best practice for you, if you fall either on the bounds of this range, or certainly if you fall out of bounds, what I would suggest you do is to write an optional essay to help clarify why now you're interested in the MBA. If you're on the lower bound, I would say why now, but also why the substance of your work experience should overcompensate the quantity. And then if you're on the upper bound, clarify to us why now, but also why an MBA versus an executive MBA. And I also think it's strategic to go ahead and to acknowledge that you are agreeable, if this is true, to being more flexible around your placement goals, your recruitment goals, knowing that recruiters have the mindset of 2 to 8 years. So we might need to be more open-minded about, well, would you be open for this kind of recruiting or this company? So I have found that open-mindedness can help within your admissions review too. Again, if that's actually true. And just a reminder, put your questions in Q&A. I will get to all the questions at the end of the presentation. In terms of this bullet here, it kind of bleeds a little bit into the qualitative review, but I'm happy to go ahead and mention it in terms of what we look for. We are looking beyond the numbers, absolutely, into the quality of work experience that you have achieved so far. And I'll just plant the seed there, and then I'll dive into it more in the qualitative section. So now for the qualitative measures, these are the 4 we'll dive into. Starting with letter of recommendation. We require 1 letter of recommendation. We have a strong preference that it is from your current direct supervisor, because we really want to understand you as a professional, and arguably your current direct supervisor should know you the best in terms of your performance, given they typically are the ones who conduct your performance reviews, etc. So current direct supervisor, if for some reason you cannot or strongly do not want to give your current direct supervisor as a recommendation, then I would encourage you to write an optional essay, even if a few sentences, to tell us why. You don't want us to make an assumption that there is some kind of negative working relationship and make any kinds of assumptions. So tell us why. When I see people not use a current direct supervisor, it tends to either be because they're an entrepreneur, so they don't have a current direct supervisor, or because they've only had that supervisor for a very short amount of time. So instead, they used a previous direct supervisor. Both of those situations are obviously understandable. Again, just get in front of it in an optional essay. The best letters of recommendation are those that really validate how you've been describing yourself in the application. There's a great alignment there. It reinforces what you've said. Also, oftentimes they can offer examples that really help to demonstrate the adjectives they're using to describe you or how you've described yourself. So we have just more support what I would encourage you to do to help ensure an alignment is take the time to meet with your recommender and explain to them why you're interested in the MBA, why you're interested in Georgetown, so that they can be on the same page and really tailor your recommendation. Okay. Resume. So I alluded to this before when I talked about looking beyond the quantity of work experience to the quality. So here we are. So to ensure that we understand your quality of work experience, I have some tips for you. So within your resume, a rule of thumb, best practice is if you have under 10 years of work experience, your resume should be 1 page in length. I would encourage you to aim for that as well. We will help restructure your resume once you're an MBA student, but go ahead and get ahead of it now too. Otherwise, we don't have any formatting preferences or guidelines. Keep in mind that the admissions committee is made up of individuals of all different academic backgrounds, professional backgrounds. So to ensure that we can understand what you have done in the past, try to quantify your successes as best you can so that they are measurable, and then we can get a better grasp of them despite the industry or despite the function. We know what you've actually done and achieved. Quantifying your successes also helps us more clearly see your progression. We can see your scope of work change, your management change over time. So that's another incentive. If you do have employment gaps, let's say for 3 months or longer, then we will ask you to explain that circumstance. That is actually a question in the application. So you don't need to write an optional essay unless you feel like you need more space. Otherwise, we ask you in the application, do you have an employment gap of 3 months or more? If so, please explain. There's this thing called the pandemic that's happened recently. And with that, we know a lot of people's employment was affected outside of their control. So again, we want to have this information from you so that we will not be judgmental, so that we can be on the same page with you about your circumstance that oftentimes is completely understandable. The last thing actually I'll mention on the resume, we do ask you in your application, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? And those are pretty short word count fields. So we fully expect you to be coming to the MBA as a catalyst for a career change, whether it's functionally, industry, geographically, all three. But if there's anything that you have done that is working towards that short-term goal, such as taking a course or a type of project you've been exposed to or client you've worked with, make sure that's on your resume so that it can help us build that case for you as well. It's okay if it is something completely different and you don't have that experience, but if you do, it's an opportunity for you to share it in your resume. Okay, on your essays, we require 1 written essay and 1 video essay. So for the written essay prompt, we have 3 available for you to choose from. So you'll see 3 prompts. You choose the one that resonates most with you. I would encourage you to be really strategic about your essay selection. Think about what you're hoping to achieve in writing it. What do you hope you convey about you as a person, a professional? And think about then which of those prompts will really allow you the opportunity to shine, to let those examples or strengths come through. So I really encourage you to think about it from an end goal perspective and then work backwards. Certainly, we're also assessing your grammar, your syntax, your flow. So do proofread or ask someone with great writing skills to proofread for you. Unfortunately, we always see people who write the wrong school name or just have kind of careless mistakes that can be avoided through proofreading. So do yourself the service and proofread. For the video essay, it is 1 minute in length, and the prompt is paraphrased here, but essentially we're asking you to tell us what you do outside of work and why. Why do you do that thing? Throughout your application, we are getting a really good sense of you as a professional through your written essay, through your recommendation, for example. So your video essay really helps ensure a holistic review in seeing you as a whole person. It puts a face, a personality, a presence to your application. It humanizes it. So think about, so take the time to be reflective, introspective about what you do outside of work, what you're passionate about, how you spend your time, and why. We do not assess on production value, so do not worry if it's done on your phone, your work laptop, whatever means you have necessary. But a best practice here, I would encourage you to let someone who knows you really well watch the video and ask them, does this seem like me? Is it authentic? Because we don't want you to try to fit into some preconceived idea. We want to be able to get to know you in this video essay. So allow us that opportunity. The interview. So if you are admitted to the program, you have to be interviewed. So if you get an interview invitation, that means you're moving forward in the process. That is a good thing. We read all of the applications. We read an application before we decide to extend an interview, meaning alternatively, we could invite on interview just based on some application data. But instead, given we value holistic review, we read your application first and see if we can make a case that at least you're eligible on paper to want to move you forward in the process. And then you'd receive that invitation to interview. In terms of interview timing, so keep in mind, again, we read first. So we need time after you submit, after the application deadline has passed. We need to process the applications to see, well, are they complete? Do we need to ask you any questions? After that, we read the application, and from there, we invite to interview. We read applications at random to prevent biases. So the timing of when your application is read can also affect the timing of your interview. We also conduct many audits throughout the admission cycle to make sure everyone who should be invited to interview has been. So all that to say, you could actually be invited to interview all the way up until the day before decision release. And I know that's nerve-wracking, but it's because of all these different processes in play on the back end. So trust the process, know that you've done your part, and now just let us follow through. So the timing of your interview, to just summarize, is no reflection of the strength of your candidacy. Now, if you are invited to an interview, I have some tips on how to best prepare. You want to prepare for it like you would a job interview. So you want to do your research. You want to come in knowing why are you doing this MBA? Why are you considering Georgetown? Those are guaranteed questions. What are you hoping to achieve? So spend time not only thinking through your responses, but practicing your responses can sometimes be helpful. You want to make sure that you have some questions prepared for us, because we'll ask you the majority of questions, but we will leave you time at the end to ask us questions. It's a great opportunity to get insight. Your interviewer could be either a current MBA student, an alum, or an admissions committee member. So you want to make sure in the questions that you prepare, they could be asked, they would be applicable across these interviewer types. These are what we call blind interviews. They're actually double blind interviews, meaning that your interviewer has not read your application. They only have your resume. That's done on purpose to prevent them from having bias coming in. So they don't know like your test scores, your GPA, for example, coming in. And it's double blind because you don't know who your interviewer is until you come on either the Zoom screen for a virtual interview or they come out and greet you if it's an in-person interview. The interview is absolutely an opportunity to establish mutual fit. So we have questions prepared to help us assess if you are a good fit academically, professionally, in our cultural community. And then you're also assessing as they are a representative of the program. You're asking them questions and getting a sense of this interaction if it's also a good fit for you. So it is mutually beneficial. I mentioned briefly, but the mode of the interview can either be done virtually over Zoom, in person on campus, or off campus. We travel around the world every round to conduct interviews. So it depends. We change locations each round if there's an opportunity for you to interview off campus in person. If so, in your interview invite, we will tell you all the options and then you'll decide what makes the most sense for you. There's no disadvantage or advantage to interview in the different modes. We completely understand it needs to be what is accessible to you. Of course, we'd love to welcome you on campus, but we know that's not always possible. So after you have gone through all these application components that we just described, and you click the submit button, sincerely, you should celebrate. This is a process, and it can take months or even years, not only of the mentality of deciding I'm going to go to graduate school, but actually tangibly putting these things together. We know it's a lot of work. It's like your first MBA assignment. So you should take a moment and recognize that milestone. From there, if you have missed anything, if anything is incomplete or confusing, we will reach out to you. So that's what we call processing applications. So you don't need to ask us, am I good? We will let you know, absolutely. And then as mentioned, we will read the applications and then we will extend interview invitations. So you'll keep an eye out for those via your email. We do have tracking on the back end to make sure you are opening and accessing the interview invitations. If we see you are not, we will send you follow-ups and we will call you if we really feel like you haven't viewed it. So we will not let you slip through the cracks. And then ultimately, the admissions committee comes together and reviews all candidates eligible to be admitted and crafts from there in terms of crafting our holistic cohort, meeting whatever admissions goals we have that year around diversity and quality. And then we release the decisions. After decisions are released, you'll see on your decision letter the date in which you need to decide by. And so you'll work towards that date, and we'll also be reaching out to you in the meantime to see how we can support you in making your enrollment decision. And actually, before I do, I'm going to go back to those two slides, but I just want to give you a sense of timeline around decisions. So we have 4 rounds of application deadlines. So you'll see we are in the middle of round 2 right now. So the next application deadline is round 3, March 30th. Every application deadline has an associated decision notification date. That means that if you've applied in round 3, for example, you will find out from us on May 4th if you've been admitted, waitlisted, or denied. We do batch release on the same day. And then you'd have until May 16th to decide if you want to join us and formally enroll. In terms of strategic timing, round 1 and round 2 combined are, when we fill a good chunk of the class. However, we intentionally have around 3 and 4 because we need them. We are not able to completely fill the class just with rounds 1 and rounds 2. We completely acknowledge that people's situations change around their jobs, around their testing, or around all kinds of things to where they need more time. And so it's also to be accessible. So all that to say, apply when you're ready. The sooner you apply, the better, just because intuitively there are less spots as you move along. However, if you're a competitive candidate, we'll take you anytime. So you'll get our attention. So don't be discouraged about the timing. Please be encouraged that we need rounds 3 and 4. And so please move ahead when you can. Worst case scenario, if for some reason we do reach some kind of capacity, or you're eligible to be admitted, but it's just a super competitive round. So worst case scenario, let's say you're not admitted. Then instead, we actually will work with you in between cycles in a one-on-one capacity to coach you to be a reapplicant, so that when you do reapply, ideally in round 1, you'd have an even stronger application, that has the backing of someone from the admissions committee to support you. So all that to say, we love reapplicants. We have such a positive bias around reapplicants. So as long as you're willing to potentially go through the process again, we'll be there to support you with that. Okay, now let's go back to these 2 slides. On this slide at the top, you see the enrollment funnel. So you'll see the applications received and then ultimately who was enrolled. This is the class that started this past fall. You'll see some of the key metrics of the class profile listed there as well, around age and diversity, international representation, and female. If you want to see the full class profiles across many more measures like undergraduate field of study, industry background, number of countries represented, et cetera, those full profiles are on our website. We have multiple graphics displaying them. So feel free, please check that out. Okay, let's talk about finances. Up to this point, we've talked about how to apply. Let's say you do get that offer on decision notification day. We want to prepare you for what that investment looks like, because it is a big decision and you don't have that much time to make it. So as much thinking as you can do now around preparing your finances and considerations, the more you're doing yourself a favor to be able to move through quickly if you are given that admit. So on the full-time side, you have a flat fee, a flat cost per year. That's your tuition and fees, and that's for the 2022-2023 cycle. It does increase for inflation, typically slightly every year. So that's why we have it pegged to 2022-2023. So it's a flat rate per year. So you need to multiply that by 2 for your 2 years of study. For the Flex MBA or the Flex Online MBA, those are more pay as you go, in that it's a cost per credit. The cost per credit is around $2,300. It's a 54 credit program. Most students complete the program in 3 years. Flex Online is a brand new program, but that's what we estimate. But you can expedite it or you can elongate it up to 5 years. So that per year cost can really change. I would say the majority of our students coming in are piecemealing their tuition and fee payments. So on the full-time side, about half of our incoming full-time students received a scholarship from our office, almost half. And their average scholarship award was around $22,000 per year. And then it's a 2-year package. So $22,000 per year was the average. In total, we have about $2.5 million of scholarship budget that we distribute. Now, you do not have to apply for a scholarship, signal anything to us. Automatically, this is part of our admissions decision. So if you are admitted to the program, we will automatically consider you for a scholarship. On decision notification day, if you get an admit letter, within that letter will state if you received a scholarship. We use our scholarships as a tool to craft a high quality and diverse cohort. The icons at the bottom are various partners that we have. This is not exhaustive. These partnerships allow us to name admitted candidates as fellows of these organizations. Being named a fellow gives you additional benefits. So all of the money comes from MBA admissions, but then additional benefits come from these fellowships through these partners. So for example, to be named a Forte Fellow, you must be awarded a minimum of $10,000 per year from MBA admissions, and also either be a self-identified woman or have demonstrated examples of supporting women in leadership positions, which we gather in your application. National Black MBA Association is if you are a member of the National Black. Hispanica is for Hispanic Americans. Reaching Out is for LGBTQ+, self-identified individuals, and a minimum of $15,000 per year from our office, et cetera, et cetera. So each of these partnerships have agreements about criteria, eligibility criteria to be named a fellow, and you are automatically reviewed for all of them once we issue you funds. So you would be notified in your admit letter if you received a scholarship and if you'd be named a fellow. So going back to the piecemeal part, talked about the scholarship side. The rest of the piecemealing, obviously, if you're fortunate to have any kind of personal savings or family savings, if you're fortunate to have any kind of employer sponsorship, otherwise loans. If you're a U.S. citizen or immigrant permanent resident, you can use the federal loans here in the United States. You would do so by submitting the FAFSA, F-A-S-F-A. You can do that once you have an admit letter. So you can submit the FAFSA to go ahead and get started on your federal loan package, which will be sent to you from our financial aid office at Georgetown. For federal aid, as long as you are not currently in default on federal loans, you'll be eligible to borrow up to the cost of attendance. That includes direct and indirect expenses at much better interest rates than you would find privately. In terms of international citizens and also those who want to go the private loan route, we don't endorse any particular vendor. I would encourage you to read the fine print on all of them to make sure you're making an informed decision about the interest rates and the forgiveness. But what we see most often from international students, we see a lot of loans from Prodigy Finance, from Empower Finance. I feel like I'm missing one. Certainly from local banking institutions from within your country. Certainly check out those interest rates and comparisons, the collateral perhaps needed. So, it is a piecemeal investment, but we truly believe in this investment. Hence, that's why we're offering this program. So in terms of return on investment, I would strongly encourage you to check out our employment report, which actually, let me pull that up and I'll drop that into the chat. There are a lot of great statistics around our placement rate. So our placement rate, 96% of our graduates within 3 months received a full-time offer. 95% of those offers were accepted. So our students are getting the offers they want. You'll see the average salary, the average signing bonus. You'll see it broken down by industry as well. Here we go. So I'm going to drop a link. Oh, I can't do it in chat. We don't have a chat. Instead, let me share this screen with you. So I simply just Googled MBA employment report, and it's the first hit on the MBA careers page. You can see my URL up here. It's the career page. You'll see some of these data points that I just mentioned. Here's the employment report for the class that graduated in 2022 with all kinds of great data and alumni profiles, top employers. So please do peruse. I think it's a really valuable resource. Okay, so we finished on the financial side, right? Let me make sure, yeah, we went through that chart already. So this is my last slide, so feel free to start dropping some questions in the chat box or the Q&A box if you haven't already. This is a reminder of all the ways that you can connect with us: our email, our website, our phone number, our social media. I had someone ask me recently why we have a bulldog all over our website. This is Jack the Bulldog. He is our mascot. You will see him walking around campus or skateboarding around campus. So this is his feature. All right, so with that, I'm going to start going through your questions. I'm just pulling up a resource for a question I already received. So in terms of application fee, the application fee is non-refundable, $175. There are ways to get an application fee waiver as well as an application fee reduction. Let me share this page with you as well. This is our application components page on the website, on the MBA website, and you'll see all of these headers over here. I clicked on application fee. You'll see the various ways you can get a waiver as well as a reduction for need-based, as well as reduction for event-based. This session, unfortunately, does not get you an application fee reduction. I'm sorry, I'll lose some of you now. I still hope you found it helpful, but instead, these are the explicit sessions that get you a reduction. You can sign up for these events on our events page. So for example, Experience Georgetown. So I would type in MBA events. And then you would go to all events just to be more efficient. And then you would see, that's what we're doing right now. Here's an Experience Georgetown, virtual Experience Georgetown. We continue to add events on an ongoing basis, but attending one of these would get you an application fee reduction, just to clarify. Okay, let me go back to this. All right. In terms of international student application timing, you can technically apply throughout rounds 1 through 4. The later you apply, the more stress it puts on the timing of your international visa, your F1 visa, getting you your I-20. We have a latest date in which we are allowed to admit you based on our Office of Global Services and their coordination with Homeland Security around your visas. So We operate off of that timeline. However, what we don't have control over is your consulate and their timing for conducting your interview. So definitely the sooner the better. Round 3 is a safe bet. We strongly encourage rounds 1 and rounds 2, but round 3 is totally fine. I have not seen issues around admit and successfully getting a visa there. Round 4 can run into some issues, but what I mean by that is like 1 or 2 people. We would need to offer a deferral because they just cannot secure the visa in time. What's most important when you're operating on the margin like that is we just stay in regular communication with you about the progress of attaining your visa. But round 3, you're totally fine. If you want to share with us, you asked a question, you can share with us about the timing, why you didn't apply earlier, but really we won't judge you for it. So it's totally fine to apply in round 3. This candidate shared they are a veteran who served for 11 years and asked about writing an optional essay if that's necessary to explain about the higher years of work experience. I would, for any profile of candidate who falls outside of the 2 to 8 years that we typically see, you bring up a good point in that I should have said, we absolutely admit candidates who have 10, 11, 12 years of work experience, but we do so still feeling like we can help them achieve their goals around recruitment. So the more information we have from you to make that case, the better. Thus, an optional essay is a great idea. Okay, this next question. If you need to have your recommendation come from a previous employer, because of the current situation you're in, that is fine. We trust that you know that best. Please just write an optional essay to help us understand why you made that decision. It will prevent us from making assumptions. You're only required to have the 1 letter of recommendation. Again, our preference is current direct supervisor, but of course we will take it from your previous employer. We just would like to understand why you made that choice. When I gave the example of someone using a previous supervisor because their current supervisor has only managed them for a short amount of time, I don't have a definition around what that time entails. I trust you to determine, do you feel like they know you well enough to write a substantial recommendation? And if you feel like they can, after working with you for 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. months, you know that best. If you all have a very close working relationship, if they've been able to see you in action substantially, then yes, they're qualified. So you make that judgment. The reason I brought it up is because it's completely understandable if you feel like you haven't had enough time for the exposure to rely on a previous supervisor. But if you feel like you have, we support you. I already clarified about the application fee. Let me know if you have any more questions on that. There's a section in the application where we ask you to self-report 5 quantitative courses, up to 5 quantitative courses you've taken. That you are pulling those courses from your academic history, so from your undergraduate transcript, or if you've taken courses outside of your formal degree. It's a way that we are acknowledging that our program is quantitatively rigorous and that it is important to us to see your performance in quantitative courses as indicators for your success in our quantitative curriculum. We are absolutely still going to review your transcript. We recognize that the quantitative courses section is self-reported. So what you might define as quantitative might be different than us, or you might overlook something that, again, of course, we'll do a transcript review, but that is a way to really help us focus on coursework that we feel is very valuable as part of your assessment, quantitative courses. And it doesn't matter to us if you choose if you have more than 5 quantitative courses, if you choose the ones where you perform the best or a mixture. Again, we're going to see it all in the transcript. So don't put too much stock in which ones you choose. In terms of your undergraduate performance, we certainly consider a lot of context. I mentioned already about the rigor of your institution and of your major. We also will consider the timing of when you graduated. If you graduated 10 years ago, then probably your undergraduate performance is not indicative of your current capabilities, though it is your performance in a classroom. So if that is the only time that you're in a classroom, then we do take that into account, but we also take into account the amount of time that has passed. So if you had a standardized test, for example, we would put more consideration on that, saying, well, they took this 3 weeks ago versus they finished their undergrad 10 years ago. So it is all about context and holistic review. In terms of scholarship decisions for rounds 3 and 4, we have earmarked within our budget the amount of funds to set aside to continue to give scholarships proportionally for rounds 3 and 4. The only caveat is those earmarkings are based on predictions of how round 1 and round 2 admits with scholarships are behaving. So if we are experiencing higher yield and more people are taking our scholarship offers, then we would have less funds in rounds 3 and 4. If we have lower yield and they're not taking our scholarships as much as we predicted, then we have more funds in rounds 3 and 4. So all that to say, we will have funds in rounds 3 and 4 that we've planned for, the extent of which will really depend on previous round behavior. In terms of taking multiple tests, we will take all that you give us. So if you want to take across GMAT, GRE, executive assessment, we will take and review those test scores in your review. We've seen people cancel scores, so they choose not to send it to us. In terms of deciding whether or not to send us scores, if you fall within the 80th percent range, then it's a score that has been accepted previously. We also have average test scores listed on our class profiles webpage as well, so you can get a better sense of your competitiveness based on that average. I hope that's helpful. This person asked about military benefits and specifically if the post 9/11 GI Bill disqualifies candidates for Georgetown scholarships. That's a good question. I'm going to generalize it a bit. So we ask you, there's a section in the application about financial sponsorship. We ask you, are you getting full sponsorship, partial sponsorship? Is your sponsorship contingent upon returning to the employer? So we gather that data from you. So for a post 9/11 GI Bill, unless you feel as if it is full coverage, then you would check partial sponsorship. And as long as it's partial, then absolutely we will review you for scholarships. If someone said they're getting fully sponsored, whatever the source may be, then no, we would not consider you for a scholarship because our scholarships can only apply towards tuition. And if you're already getting full coverage, then you're not allowed to keep those funds. And if you need help to determine what your military benefits look like, reach out to us because we actually have a military and veteran resources office at Georgetown that can help you break that down. This person asked about the qualities we look for in prospective students. So I mentioned we are assessing you on 3 verticals: academic preparedness, professional recruitment fit, and community cultural fit. So we're looking for indicators that would predict your success across these areas. Ultimately, we want you to be successful in the classroom, getting a job, and thrive in our community. So the qualities that we look for are academic acumen via your academic history and test scores. We're looking for quality and quantity of work experience compared to what you're hoping to achieve with your short-term goal, and whether or not we feel like the Georgetown MBA is the missing piece based on our recruitment history, placement rates, employer relationships, faculty strengths. And then community and cultural fit, we're looking for people who really thrive in a collaborative, team-oriented, service-minded, values-driven community. We are not the stereotypical super competitive, cutthroat, aggressive community that is represented in so many MBA programs in the US. We are very distinct in that we are very values-driven. We're the oldest Jesuit institution in the United States. With that comes a strong history and legacy of being values-based. And you'll see that in our curricular focus on ethical leadership. You'll feel it with the people and how we truly care for one another. By the way, I recognize that we're a few minutes over. I'm going to finish out the questions, so you're welcome to stay here with me. But if you need to pop off, of course, I understand and appreciate your time today. So if you are accepted into the program, we have 1 intake a year, which starts every fall. However, we have orientation and our opening program that actually starts at the end of July. So our program does have a little bit earlier of a start, so end of July. So in terms of recommendations, I would say 95% of people submit just 1 recommendation because you followed the instructions of, we would like your current direct supervisor. About 5% of people submit 2 recommendations, and that's because either they fall into the categories we've talked about already. They're an entrepreneur, or they've only had their current supervisor for a short time, so they still get one from them, but also supplement with the previous direct supervisor. I would really stick with the 1 recommendation from your current direct supervisor unless you have extenuating circumstances. We did not talk about the consortium, which is one of our partners here, the consortium. So the consortium is a valued partnership that we have. We're one of 22 schools who are part of the consortium, 23 schools now. And the consortium is for underrepresented people in the United States. Or allies of underrepresented people. You apply actually through the consortium, and then they send us your MBA application to Georgetown. Your membership for the consortium is contingent upon them deciding if you are eligible, if there's an alignment with their mission. If you are accepted as a member to the consortium, your membership for the consortium is also dependent on getting an admit from a consortium school. So if you are a consortium member, if you've gotten an admit from a consortium school, then you are eligible to be reviewed for the consortium fellowship. The consortium fellowship is a full ride fellowship. We typically offer around 20 every year for our incoming students. So as long as you're a consortium member, then yes, you would be eligible for consideration for the fellowship upon admission. In terms of your test score report, at the time of application, we only need your unofficial score report. It's only if you are admitted and choose to enroll with us that we would then need your official score report. So at the time of admission, we just need your unofficial score report. Those are all the questions I see in the Q&A box. I'll give you a minute. Did anyone have another question? Please drop it in the Q&A box. Okay, well, I want to thank you all so much for being here with me. Some of you, it's in the middle of the night. Some of you, it's your lunchtime, like me. Whatever it may be, thank you for your time. I hope you found this valuable. This session is recorded. If you would like a copy of the recording, you can send us an email to this top email address. Typically, it takes them a few days to download it and to edit it because they cut off the beginning where I'm just kind of sitting there, for example. So feel free if you'd like the recording. We're happy to provide it to you. Just have the expectation it might take a few days. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Best of luck to you as you move forward in the application program, in the application process for Georgetown MBA. If we can help support you, answer any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us by whatever means you enjoy, email, phone, chat. So best of luck, take care, stay safe, bye.